It's already the largest oil spill in U.S. history. The tanker Exxon Valdez, gouged by a reef, more than 8.5 million gallons poured into Prince William Sound.
When the Exxon Valdez tankard hit Bligh Reef, newscasters were unsuccessful at containing the disaster to a single storyline. While our traditional information sources struggle to navigate the stranger-than-fiction terrain of oil culture and crisis, filmmakers stepped in to try articulating what was happening. As documentary maker Werner Herzog said in his Minnesota declaration, "There are deeper strata of truth in cinema, and there is such a thing as poetic, ecstatic truth. It is mysterious and elusive, and can be reached only through fabrication and imagination and stylization." In this essay, I want to look at two films, both released in the 1990s to skeptical critics. They used the science fiction genre and responded to two major oil crises at the end of the 20th century. Kevin Reynolds' dystopian action-adventure Waterworld, and Werner Herzog's Lessons of Darkness, which documents the Kuwaiti oil well fires ignited during the first Gulf War in 1991, and the American well workers who extinguished the fires. Only when we are immersed in these two worlds' outlandish land and waterscapes do we recognize our own Earth, visualizing global warming and the international petroculture that are usually so abstract. First, let's look at Waterworld. During the traditional Universal Studios introduction, the land disappears as a solitary voice tells us where we are.
The future. The polar ice caps have melted, covering the Earth with water.
In an effort to find their footing, some believe that the samples of dirt that traders sell are proof that somewhere, dry land still exists.
Pure dirt.
So what's the word? We trading or not?
An orphan, Enola, was found at sea in a basket with a tattoo on her back, rumored to be a map to dry land. But no one can read it. No one even knows what they are looking for. In this flood narrative, the sons of Cain have survived. Waterworld is terrorized by a gang called the Smokers, endlessly traveling the endless sea aboard an oil tankard, and hunting down Enola so they can claim dry land for themselves. Set apart from the rest by their technology, the Smokers exemplify Glenn Wilmot's picture of the oil world, both modernly industrial and prehistorically primal, an occult, decaying otherworld. Their shelter, airplanes, and jet skis all rely on fossil fuel, what they call black stuff, meaning their technology is both the most advanced on Waterworld, modernly industrial, and a relic of the ancients who flooded the earth, prehistorically primal. When the survivors rescue Enola, the Smokers' oil dependence is turned against them. The tankard's black stuff is ignited, sinking it with all the smokers on board. A self-contained story and moral of the story. This villainization of Waterworld's only oil culture, destroy all the oil, destroy the evil in the world, is a caustic choice, rooted in a tragedy still fresh in 1995. Audiences might have read a righteous justice into this oil tankard, the Exxon Valdez, going down in flames. The deacon, leader of the Smokers, invokes St. Joe, the captain of Exxon Valdez when it hit Bligh Reef. Joseph Hazelton was brutally scapegoated by ExxonMobil and the media for the spill. But this doesn't tell the whole story. The disaster was inevitable, given the systemic negligence of the oil industry, including the ship's weak hull design, the lack of a response protocol for containing oil spills, and several warnings about the dangers transporting oil across the Sound that fell on deaf ears. When we see the deacon looking at St. Joe, we are looking at our own recent history. We are the ancients of this future. We never learn why the Smokers want to find dry land, but there is something tragic and human about the Smokers' desperation to regain control of the narrative.
Dry land is not just our destination, but it is our destiny!
Do they see their way of life, fueled by fossil fuels and others' natural and human resources, is unsustainable? Or are we meant to interpret it as the natural wish of all humans? When Enola, her guardian Helen, and the other survivors finally find dry land, they will colonize this new world of greenery, fresh water, and wildlife, separating water from earth at the end of Noah's narrative arc. But there is an anomaly to this conventional cautionary tale, and the happy ending that dry land promises. He has no name, going only by drifter or mariner, reminding us of a Western, strong, silent type, the man with no name on a new frontier. While he typically poses in posters and promotional images as the gunslinging hero of the 80s and 90s, more importantly, he is Ichthyus sapien, fishman, a mutant with webbed feet and gills to breathe underwater. His unique virtue seems to be his ability to adapt to the world he lives in, not just his physiology. As a water breather, he has access to the cultural memory of the earth, the truth hidden beneath the deeper surface strata. Others are leery of him because he is different.
Gills.
Mutation!
But a few kindred spirits join him. Enola, whose prophetic drawings of wild plants and animals set her apart from the others, a loneliness she and the mariner share. Helen, who is defined by her deep faith in dry land and her maternal instinct for Enola, who is herself an extension of dry land. And Gregor, an inventor who also transcends the elements with his flying machine through the use of water, converting steam into the power of flight. Gregor recognizes the mariner's mutations as natural to and symptomatic of their new environment. Others fail to adapt, even as the elements are incorporated into their bodies, the smokers who cannot move beyond oil, or the trader who has gone insane from drinking seawater. This very human failure to adapt forms the core of Helen's faith in dry land. She finds a purpose in the physiology of the human nature. It is not adapted to living on water, therefore there must be land. At first he shows no desire to connect with fellow man or to find dry land, but we witness his adapting to his own species by ferrying Enola and Helen on his boat. He falls in love with Helen. He befriends Enola, teaching her to swim. He protects them both from this elemental realm. While his evolving affection for these two might signal at the Hollywood happy ending, three lonely individuals coming together in a nuclear family structure, he ultimately returns to the sea. The film does not present this as a moral failing.
I don't belong here, I belong out there.
You belong here.
It's too strange here, it doesn't move right.
He is not deliberately rejecting this human world, but he feels out of place while everyone else is acclimating naturally. He is the loose end, estranged from this film's human narrative, but better adapted to the world where it takes place. Like another, more ancient mariner, he cannot find joy with his fellow man. He must drift elsewhere. His evolution to the post-human Earth and his melancholy departure at the end of the story make him both its perfect protagonist and its greatest complication, leaving both the oil culture and an ancient version of the Earth behind. In his essay on the absolute, sublime, and ecstatic truth, Werner Herzog explores the aesthetic storytelling that drives his Lessons of Darkness, a film that decontextualizes its new style and documentary footage about the Kuwaiti oil well fires into an alien, operatic slow burn. He begins essay and film with a quote ascribed to 17th century French philosopher Blaise Pascal. "The collapse of the stellar universe will occur, like creation, in grandiose splendor." The words attributed to Blaise Pascal, which preface my film Lessons of Darkness, are in fact by me. Pascal himself could not have said it better. Pascal is best known for his philosophical theory, Pascal's Wager, a logical answer to the eternal question, does God exist? There are two potential truths. He is not. And two human beliefs. We believe, we do not. If we choose to believe, and in fact he is, we spend eternity in paradise. If in fact he is not, we lose nothing. Likewise, we lose nothing if we do not believe and he does not exist. But if he does, and we do not believe, we lose everything. Natural or anthropogenic disaster is imminent if we deny the problem, and in fact it exists. Exxon Valdez happened because we wagered it wouldn't, and now the sound will always be polluted. Even if the disaster doesn't strike, what do we really lose in believing it could? Some believe we haven't learned the lesson. In 2010, the Deepwater Horizon oil spill displaced Exxon Valdez as the worst in U.S. history, and BP Oil's CEO, Tony Hayward, faced backlash for citing the vastness of the living ocean as rhetoric to downplay the consequences.
May 13th, Chairman Tony Hayward speaking to the Guardian newspaper. The Gulf of Mexico is a very big ocean. The volume of oil and dispersant we're putting into it is tiny in relation to the total water volume. 5 days later, Hayward again to Britain's Sky News. I think the environmental impact of this disaster is likely to be very modest.
There's no one who wants this thing over more than I do. I'd like my life back.
In his review of Herzog's movie, Imre Zaman suggests an alternative, that the truth we gain from Herzog's lessons comes from treating oil as a social problem, which still needs to be puzzled out, rather than as a lesson about the fact that corporations want money or that driving produces CO2. Neither an especially shocking insight. Herzog creates an alternative universe where Pascal might have prophesied about the collapse, and we have lost another wager with the stellar universe. There is not a single frame in Lessons of Darkness in which you could recognize our planet as punishment for our sins. For this reason, the film is labeled science fiction, as if it could have been shot in a distant galaxy, hostile to life. If Waterworld is a Darwinian genesis that threatens to punish future generations for our sins, whose heroes finally rid the waters and the world of oil, Lessons of Darkness, where the oil lakes are this world's water, harkens to Revelations, a prophecy about the destruction of the earth before a new era of paradise can be realized. The grandiose splendor of our collapsing universe, a world where fossil fuels burn, is exemplified in its most famous scene, when it looks like the fires have all been extinguished.
Two figures are approaching an oil well. One of them holds a lighted torch. What are they up to? Are they going to rekindle the blaze? Has life without fire become unbearable for them?
This moment denies us the satisfaction of Waterworld's fiery climax, because it does not ring true in our world to fire management, where firemen and forestry managers sometimes have to ignite or control a burn to safely manage a crisis or create a healthier ecology. Herzog could be criticized for this instance of disorientation, which makes these trained professionals look careless and chaotic. So what is he trying to tell us?
The first creature we encountered tried to communicate something to us.
On one hand, we expect these humans to put out the well fires so that the oil below the surface is not wasted, letting us return to business as usual. On the other, the reignited fire, like water, can cleanse. Had there been a fast response to Exxon Valdez, the spilled oil could have been burned off, cauterizing the wound before it spread. But in darkness, the moral is obscure. Are these creatures like the smokers, who cannot live without oil? Or are they like the mariner, emerging stronger from the ashes and departing from the closed-off happy ending to return to their natural environment? The world as it really exists, water and fire, two places where we humans, as we are now, could not live. But before paradise comes, the earth we know must collapse. Perhaps these evolved creatures can teach us how to adapt, and we can learn to live with the earth we are living on now.